Jake walked through the long crystal hallway of the Galactic Union Academy. The walls were made of something that looked like blue glass, and they hummed softly with energy. Strange lights floated near the ceiling, following students as they moved. It was beautiful. It was also very lonely. A group of students saw him coming. Their skin was like living crystal, and it changed colors with their emotions. Right now, they were turning pale white. Fear. They pressed themselves against the wall as Jake passed, their large eyes never leaving him. "Good morning," Jake said politely. They did not answer. One of them made a small sound like glass breaking. Jake kept walking. He was used to this now. 3 months at the academy, and he still made aliens run away just by existing. It was not his fault that Earth was classified as a Category 7. It was not his fault that humans had a reputation across the galaxy as unkillable predators. He was just a farm kid from Kansas who wanted to learn about the stars. He found waiting for him in the cafeteria. She was sitting alone at a large table that could fit 20 beings. The other tables were packed with students of all species, but nobody would sit near the humans. "Rough morning?" asked as he sat down. Saw me in the bathroom and screamed for 5 minutes," Jake said. "I was just washing my hands." Laughed. She had dark hair and sharp eyes, and she came from a small fishing town in Maine. Like Jake, she was one of the 12 humans accepted into the exchange program. Unlike Jake, she found the whole situation funny rather than sad. "I sneezed in the library yesterday," she said. 3 students fainted. Apparently, the sound we make when we sneeze is similar to the hunting call of some predator from the outer rim. Jake shook his head and looked at his food. The academy tried to provide meals for all species, but human food was always served in special containers marked with warning symbols. His sandwich had a label that said "Caution, Protein." "It is just ham and cheese," he muttered. "To them we eat death," said cheerfully. "Speaking of death, you ready for today's xenobiology class? I heard Professor is covering dangerous creatures." Jake groaned. Professor was one of the species that had founded the Galactic Union thousands of years ago. He was very old, very smart, and very clear about his feelings toward humans. He called Earth a biological horror show and treated Jake and like they were bombs that might explode at any moment. "Maybe we should skip it," Jake said. "We cannot skip it. We need the credits." Stood up and grabbed her bag. "Come on, let us go scare some aliens by sitting quietly and taking notes." The lecture hall was enormous. It was shaped like a bowl, with seats rising up in circles around a central stage. Hundreds of students were already there when Jake arrived. The moment they walked through the door, the noise stopped. Every alien in the room turned to look at them. Jake felt his face grow warm. He hated this part. He hated being stared at like he was a monster. Back home, he was just a normal guy. He liked baseball and old movies and his mother's cooking. He had never hurt anyone in his life. But here, in this room full of beings from across the galaxy, he was a nightmare made flesh. "Back row," whispered. "Less chance of causing a stampede." They climbed the stairs and found seats in the highest row. The students around them immediately moved away, creating a bubble of empty seats. Jake tried not to feel hurt. Professor entered the stage below. He was tall with a dark green shell and compound eyes that reflected the light like jewels. His 4 arms moved constantly, adjusting his robes and touching his notes. "Good morning, students," he said. His voice was translated through the universal system, but it still had a clicking quality that was hard to ignore. "Today we continue our study of dangerous. Specifically, we will examine apex predators from restricted worlds." He looked up at Jake and his mandibles moved in what might have been a smile. "I hope our human guests will pay close attention. Perhaps they will recognize some relatives." Some students laughed nervously. Jake kept his face blank, rolled her eyes. The professor touched a control, and the lights dimmed. A holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It showed a creature that looked like a mix between a spider and a shark, with too many legs and too many teeth. The of Epsilon 7, the professor announced, capable of surviving in vacuum for short periods. Its bite delivers a toxin that dissolves flesh within seconds. An adult has been known to consume an entire settlement in one feeding cycle. The alien students gasped and whispered. A few covered their eyes. Jake looked at the creature with mild interest. It was definitely scary, but it was also very alien. It did not trigger any deep fear in him. It was like looking at a picture of a dinosaur. Interesting, but not real. The professor noticed his lack of reaction. His compound eyes narrowed. Perhaps something more impressive, he said coldly. The image changed. Now it showed a worm-like thing with a mouth that opened like a flower of knives. The professor described how it laid eggs inside living hosts, how the bobbies ate their way out, how entire planets had been quarantined because of infestations. Made a face. That is gross, she whispered to Jake. But not scary, Jake whispered back. Professor was watching them. He saw their calm faces, their relaxed bodies. Other students were trembling, crying out, releasing stress chemicals. But the humans just sat there like they were watching a boring movie. The professor's mandibles clicked rapidly. It was a sign of frustration. "Class," he said slowly, "it seems our human cadets are not impressed by the dangers of the galaxy. Perhaps they need a special lesson." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. This was not going to be good. "I had planned to save this for the end of the semester," the professor continued. "But I think now is the appropriate time. I want to show you the most dangerous apex predator ever by the Galactic Union. A creature so deadly that 17 researchers and 3 military vessels were lost in its retrieval." The room went completely dark. "A creature," the professor said in a hushed voice, "found on a so terrible that we have forbidden all contact with it. A world called Earth." Jake and looked at each other in the darkness. The same thought crossed both their minds. What could possibly be worse than what they had already seen? The darkness lasted only a moment. Then the holographic projector came back to life, filling the lecture hall with pale blue light. Professor stood at the center of the stage, his compound eyes reflecting the glow like dark mirrors. "Before we see the ultimate predator," he said, "let us review what the galaxy considers dangerous. Let us set the proper context for what I am about to show you." He touched the controls, and a new creature appeared. This one was beautiful in a terrible way. It looked like a floating jellyfish made of purple light, with tendrils that stretched for meters in every direction. "The of the Rift," the professor announced. "A psychic predator. It does not hunt with claws or teeth. It hunts with the mind. A single can take control of 100 beings at once, turning them into puppets. Victims remain conscious as their bodies are used to kill their own families." A student in the front row fainted. Medical drones floated down to carry them away. Jake watched with interest. Mind control was definitely creepy, but it was also so far outside his experience that it felt like science fiction, which, he reminded himself, it technically was not. Not here, not in this galaxy where such things were real. "You are not afraid," a soft voice said beside him. Jake turned. A student had moved closer, though she still kept 2 empty seats between them. Her crystalline skin was shifting through colors of blue and gold. Curiosity and fear mixed together. "I am," she said quietly. "I have been watching you. Neither of you reacts to anything." Leaned over Jake to answer. "We are from we grew up with danger." "But these creatures are beyond anything on your world," said. "They must be. The alone has destroyed entire civilizations." Jake shrugged. "It is scary, I guess, but it is also not something I have ever seen before. Fear works better when you know what you are looking at." Skin flickered with confusion. Before she could respond, the professor changed the image. This new creature was massive. The hologram had to shrink it down to fit in the room, and even then it was terrifying. It looked like a beetle the size of a starship, with armor plating and jaws that could bite through metal. The hive crusher of Prime, Professor said, the largest known land predator in the galaxy. It feeds on mining equipment. When food is scarce, it feeds on cities. The sound of its footsteps alone can cause heart failure in smaller species. More students fled the room. Others were crying quietly. The air was thick with stress pheromones and fear chemicals. Jake thought it looked like a really big bug. He had seen big bugs before. His family farm had a problem with locusts every few years. This was just a locust the size of a building. Weird, but not terrifying. The professor was getting angry now. Jake could tell by the way his mandibles clicked faster and faster. They had expected the humans to break down in fear by now. Instead, they sat in their seats like they were watching a nature documentary. "Very well," the professor said. "Let us try something more personal." The next creature made even Jake uncomfortable. It was humanoid in shape, but wrong. Its limbs were too long. Its face was blank except for a circular mouth filled with spinning teeth. It moved in the hologram like a broken puppet. "The hollow worm in its adult form," the professor said. "It begins life as a microscopic parasite. It enters through the skin, travels to the brain, and slowly replaces the host from the inside. The victim does not know they are infected until it is too late. By then, the worm has eaten everything that made them who they were. What remains is a shell, a hunting machine that seeks out the victim's loved ones to spread the infection." Jake felt his stomach turn. That was bad, that was really bad. Beside him had gone pale. "Now that," whispered, "is nightmare fuel." But they did not scream. They did not run. They sat in their seats and watched. Professor stared at them with something like hatred in his compound eyes. He had shown them horrors that made other species beg for mercy. He had shown them the worst the galaxy had to offer. And still, the humans just sat there. "Enough," he said. "Enough of these lesser creatures." He touched the controls with all four arms. The hologram disappeared. Warning lights began to flash around the stage. A mechanical voice announced, "Category 9 specimen. Security protocol engaged. Viewing discretion advised." The alien students still in the room began to panic. Some tried to leave, but the doors had sealed. Security protocol meant the information was too dangerous to risk escaping the room. "What is happening?" asked, her voice high with fear. "Class," Professor said, "what I am about to show you is classified at the highest level. This information does not leave this room. This creature was retrieved from the planet Earth at tremendous cost. It is the reason we will never allow full contact with that. It is the reason humans will forever be watched and controlled." Jake felt cold. This was about Earth. This was about his home. "The creature I am about to show you," the professor continued, "was found living alongside humans, not as prey, not as a competitor, as a partner. The humans of Earth have somehow formed a predatory bond with this beast. They work together to hunt. They share territory. They share kills." Grabbed Jake's arm. "What is he talking about?" Jake shook his head. He had no idea. "This creature has forward-facing eyes, the universal sign of a predator. It has teeth designed for tearing flesh. It can run at speeds that would exhaust most prey species. It can track a target for days using only scent. It is relentless. It is merciless. It is the perfect killing machine." The lights went out completely. "And it loves to hunt," the professor whispered in the darkness. The hologram activated. Jake stared at it. The entire room stared at it. The creature was covered in golden brown fur. It had 4 legs, a long tail, and ears that flopped over. Its tongue hung out of its mouth. Its eyes were big and brown and happy. It was a dog. It was a golden retriever. Jake felt laughter building in his chest. He tried to stop it. He knew it would cause problems, but he could not help himself. He started laughing, and he could not stop. Jake's laughter echoed through the silent lecture hall. Every alien in the room had frozen. They stared at him with expressions of shock, confusion, and growing horror. Here was a human, laughing at the most dangerous creature in the known galaxy. Professor's mandibles clicked so fast they sounded like a machine gun. His compound eyes fixed on Jake with pure fury. "You find this amusing, human?" he demanded. "You find the deaths of 17 researchers funny? You laugh at the 3 military vessels destroyed trying to contain this beast?" Jake tried to stop laughing. He really did. But every time he looked at the hologram, the giggles came back. Was no better. She had her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking. "I am sorry," Jake managed to say between breaths. "I am so sorry, but Professor, that is not a deadly predator." "The evidence says otherwise," the professor snapped. "This creature killed 3 handlers after its capture. It destroyed containment equipment. It showed signs of advanced tactical thinking." "It is a dog," Jake said. "Silence." "A what?" someone asked. "A dog, specifically that is a golden retriever. They are one of the friendliest breeds." Jake wiped his eyes and tried to control himself. "Professor, I grew up with 3 of them. My neighbor has 5. They are pets, companions. We keep them in our homes." The room exploded with noise. Students were shouting questions. Some were crying. One student near the front was making a high-pitched whistling sound that Jake was pretty sure meant complete mental breakdown. Professor raised all 4 arms. "Silence, silence." The noise died down slowly. "You are telling me," the professor said, his voice dangerously quiet, "that humans keep apex predators as pets." "They are not apex predators," said, finally lifting her face. Her eyes were red from laughing. "They are domesticated animals. We bred them from wolves thousands of years ago. They are our friends." "Wolves?" His voice was tiny. "What are wolves?" Jake and exchanged looks. This was going to take some explaining. Pulled out her personal device. It was a small tablet that connected to Earth's information networks through the Union relay system. She touched a few controls, and new holograms appeared above her device. The first image showed a little girl hugging a golden retriever. The dog's tail was blurred from wagging so hard. Both the girl and the dog looked incredibly happy. "This is what dogs do," said. "They play with children. They protect families. They are loyal and loving and would never hurt anyone unless that person was threatening their humans." "But the teeth," a student whispered. "The pursuit capabilities, the predatory bond." "The predatory bond is called love," Jake said. "Dogs love their families. They would die to protect us. And yes, they have teeth and they can run fast, but they use those things to play fetch and chase squirrels, not to hunt people." Professor looked like his entire understanding of the universe was falling apart. He turned back to his data screen and started reading with frantic speed. "The handlers," he said. "The handlers that were killed explain that." Jake thought for a moment. Were they trying to take the dog away from its family? Were there humans nearby when you captured it? The professor checked his records. His movements became slower and slower as he read. "The specimen was retrieved from a human dwelling," he said quietly. "There was a family unit present. The human female attempted to prevent the retrieval. She was restrained. The specimen became aggressive at that point." "Of course it did," said. "You took a dog away from its family. You scared its people. The dog was trying to protect them." "It was not hunting," Jake added. "It was defending. There is a big difference." The lecture hall had gone very quiet. Every student was listening, trying to understand. Their whole lives, they had been taught that species were mindless killers. They had been taught that humans were the most dangerous beings in the galaxy because they came from the most dangerous planet. But now they were learning something new, something that did not fit their understanding at all. "Why?" asked. Her crystalline skin had turned a soft pink color, confusion mixed with wonder. Why would you bond with predators? Why would you bring dangerous animals into your homes? Jake smiled. It was the first genuine smile he had worn since arriving at the academy. Because we are lonely, he said simply. Humans do not like to be alone. We form bonds with everything around us. Dogs, cats, horses, even wild animals sometimes. We look at a predator and we do not see a threat. We see a potential friend. That is insane, Professor said, but his voice had lost its anger. Now he just sounded tired and confused. Maybe, agreed, but it works. Dogs have been with humans for 15,000 years. They helped us hunt. They protected our camps. They herded our animals. They guided our blind. They found people lost in the snow. They comforted our sick and dying. She showed more pictures. Dogs wearing tiny sweaters. Dogs dressed up for holidays. Dogs sleeping in beds next to their owners. Dogs playing in parks, running on beaches, swimming in lakes. They are our best friends, said. That is not a metaphor, that is a fact. A student near the middle of the room stood up. He was large, with 4 arms and thick gray skin. His species was one of the more warrior-like races in the Union. I have a question, he said. You mentioned other animals, wolves, horses. What else have humans bonded with? Jake opened his mouth to answer, then stopped. She looked back at him. Both of them realized at the same time that this conversation was about to get much more complicated. Well, Jake said slowly, there are cats. They are smaller predators. We have about 600 million of them as pets on Earth. 600 million predators, someone squeaked. They mostly just sleep and knock things off tables, said quickly. They are not dangerous to humans, usually. What else? The pressed. Horses, we ride them. They carry us into battle. You ride animals into battle. Historically, yes, not so much anymore. We have cars now. What else? Jake rubbed the back of his neck. Some people keep snakes, lizards, spiders. My uncle had a wolf hybrid for a while. There are people who have pet bears, though that is not really legal. Oh, and there was this one guy in my town who had a pet alligator. The room erupted into chaos again. Students were screaming, crying, and running for the exits. The doors were still sealed, so they just piled up against them in a mass of panicking bodies. Professor sat down heavily on the edge of the stage. He looked like a man who had just discovered that everything he believed was wrong. Bears, he repeated softly. They keep bears. Jake walked down the stairs toward the stage. The students between him and the professor scrambled out of his way, but Jake barely noticed any more. Professor, he said gently, I know this is a lot to take in, but I promise you we are not monsters. We are just really, really good at making friends. The professor looked up at him. For the first time there was no fear in his eyes, just exhaustion and wonder. How? He asked. How do you look at something that could kill you and decide to love it instead? Jake thought about his dogs back home. He thought about the way they greeted him every morning, tails wagging, eyes bright with joy. He thought about the warmth of them sleeping at the foot of his bed, the sound of their breathing in the dark. Because love is stronger than fear, he said. At least it is for us. The lecture hall had to be evacuated, not because of any danger but because half the students had fainted and the other half would not stop screaming. Medical teams rushed in to help the fallen. Counselors were called to comfort those who were having mental breakdowns. The whole academy went into emergency mode. Jake and were taken to a side room and told to wait. They sat in comfortable alien chairs that adjusted to their body shapes and looked at each other. Well said, that could have gone better. Or worse, Jake replied. At least nobody tried to kill us. Give it time. The door opened and Commander walked in. He was the same species as the student who had asked about other Earth animals. He stood over 2 meters tall, with gray skin like stone and 4 muscular arms. His military uniform was covered in medals and symbols that Jake did not recognize. was in charge of the human exchange program. He had never been friendly to Jake, but he had also never been cruel. He treated them like dangerous animals that might be useful if properly controlled. Jake supposed that was better than nothing. "Explain," said. He did not sit down. "Explain what, sir?" Jake asked. "Everything. Start from the beginning. Tell me about these dogs." So Jake told him. He explained the history of dog domestication. He explained how wolves had started following human camps to eat scraps of food, how the friendliest wolves had been welcomed closer, how, over thousands of generations, those wolves had become something new, something that loved humans as much as humans loved them. Showed pictures again. She had found videos this time. A dog running to greet a soldier coming home from war. A dog leading a blind woman safely across a street. A dog lying beside a sick child in a hospital bed. A dog pulling a drowning man from a frozen lake. Watched it all in silence. His forearms were crossed over his chest. His face showed no emotion. When they finished, he was quiet for a long time. "In the Union," he finally said, "we have a saying. The measure of a species is how it treats the weak. We judge civilizations by their kindness to those who cannot fight back." Jake nodded. "We have similar sayings on Earth." "But we never considered the opposite," continued. "We never asked how a species treats the strong, how they deal with things that could hurt them." He looked at the screen, where a video of children playing with a huge dog was still frozen. "You do not kill them. You do not cage them. You invite them into your families." "Not all of them," said carefully. "We are not stupid. Some animals are too dangerous. But when we see potential for friendship, we take the chance." Was quiet again. Then he asked, "The research team that captured the dog, they reported that the creature kept trying to return to the human dwelling. They thought it was trying to hunt the family inside. But it was not hunting, was it?" "No, sir," Jake said. "It was trying to go home. Dogs get attached to their families. Being taken away from them causes real psychological pain. That dog was probably terrified and confused and desperate to get back to the people it loved." "We tortured it," said slowly. "We thought we were protecting ourselves, but we were torturing an innocent creature." The door opened again. Professor came in looking older than before. Behind him came the student. She had asked permission to join the discussion, and apparently it had been granted. "The creature is still alive," said. "It is being held in a high-security containment wing. It has been there for 3 galactic years." "3 years," whispered. Her eyes were wet. "That poor thing has been alone and scared for 3 years." "We did not know," said. There was guilt in his voice now. "We thought it was a predator. We treated it like a predator. Every time it barked or jumped at the walls, we thought it was trying to attack. We added more security, more restraints." "It was crying for its family," Jake said. His voice was thick. "It was asking to go home." Stepped forward. Her crystalline skin was glowing with soft colors that Jake could not read. "I want to understand," she said. "I have spent my whole life being afraid of species, but you are not what I expected. Neither is this dog. Everything I was taught was wrong." "Not wrong," Jake said gently, "just incomplete. Yes, Earth is dangerous. Yes, humans are tough and hard to kill, but that is only part of who we are. The other part is this." He gestured at the frozen image on screen. "We make connections. We build families. We love things that could hurt us and somehow make them love us back." "How can we trust that?" asked. "How can the Union know that you will not turn that ability against us?" Stood up. She was small compared to the commander, but she met his eyes without fear. "You cannot know," she said. "Not for certain, but that is true of every relationship. Every friendship starts with a risk. Someone has to trust first." "On Earth," Jake added, "there is a story about the first wolf that came to a human campfire. It could have attacked. The humans could have killed it, but instead they shared their food. That wolf became the ancestor of every dog alive today. One moment of trust changed everything." looked at the two humans for a long time. Then he looked at, "What do you want to do about the dog?" he asked Jake. "I want to see it," Jake said immediately. "I want to help it. If it has been alone for 3 years, it needs to know that someone cares. It needs to know it has not been forgotten." "That creature has killed handlers," warned. "Handlers who were herding it," shot back. "Handlers who kept it in a cage and treated it like a monster. Of course it fought back. Any living thing would." Made a decision. Jake could see it happen. Something changed in the commander's eyes. "I will take you to the containment wing," he said. "Both of you. But if that creature attacks, I will not be responsible for what happens." "It will not attack," Jake said with complete confidence. "Not us, not humans." They walked out of the room together. Followed, her skin flickering with colors that might have been hope. Professor came last, looking like a man walking into the unknown. The containment wing was on the far side of the station. As they walked, Jake noticed that the other students were watching them. Word had spread. Everyone knew what had happened in the lecture hall. But something was different now. The aliens still kept their distance, but they were not running away. They were watching with curiosity instead of fear, questions in their eyes instead of panic. Maybe Jake thought this was how it started, one moment of trust, one small step toward understanding. They reached the containment wing. Heavy doors sealed behind them. Warning signs covered every surface. And somewhere ahead, locked away in the most secure prison in the galaxy, a golden retriever was waiting for someone to come home. The containment wing was cold and quiet. The walls were made of thick metal that hummed with energy fields. Every door they passed had warning symbols and security locks. This place was designed to hold the most dangerous creatures in the known galaxy. And at the end of the longest hallway, behind 3 layers of force fields and a door thick enough to survive a starship collision, was a dog. Commander stopped at a control panel. "The viewing window is ahead. The creature can see out, but it cannot escape. We have never opened the inner door. It is too dangerous." Jake walked past him without hesitation, followed close behind, Professor and hung back, watching from a safe distance. The viewing window was made of something clearer than glass. Through it, Jake could see a small room with bare metal walls. There was a bowl of water in one corner and a pile of blankets in another. The blankets had been torn to shreds. Scratch marks covered the walls. In the middle of the room sat a golden retriever. It was thin, too thin. Its golden fur had lost its shine. Its eyes, which should have been bright and happy, were dull and tired. It sat perfectly still, staring at nothing. "Oh no," whispered. "Oh, you poor baby." The dog's ears moved. Its head turned toward the window. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the dog saw Jake. Something changed. Life came back into those tired eyes. The tail, which had been still for who knows how long, started to move, just a little twitch at first, then faster, then a full wag. The dog stood up. Its legs were shaky from lack of exercise, but it did not care. It walked toward the window, then started running, then sprinting as fast as it could. It hit the window with its paws and started barking. But this was not an angry bark. This was a happy bark. A bark that said, "You came, you finally came, I knew someone would come." "It is attacking," said nervously. "It is saying hello," Jake corrected. He pressed his hand against the window. The dog immediately tried to lick his palm through the barrier. Its whole body was wiggling with joy. "I need to open the door," Jake said. "Absolutely not," said the security protocols. "Look at it," Jake interrupted. "Really look at it. Does that look like a monster to you?" Looked. The dog had given up trying to lick the window and was now spinning in circles, its tail wagging so hard that its whole back end moved with it. It kept looking at Jake, then at the door, then back at Jake. The message was clear. "Let me out. Let me say hello, please, please, please." "Commander," said softly, "this animal has been alone for 3 years. It has been treated like a weapon. But look at it now. A human shows up and suddenly it is the happiest creature in the galaxy. Does that seem like predator behavior to you?" Was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to the control panel. "If anything happens," he said, "if that creature shows any sign of aggression, I am sealing the room and spacing the entire section. Understood?" "Understood," Jake said. Pressed a sequence of buttons. The force fields flickered and died. The thick metal door began to slide open. The dog shot through before it was even halfway open. It crashed into Jake with enough force to knock him off his feet. Jake went down laughing as the dog covered his face with kisses, tail wagging, whole body vibrating with happiness. "Good boy," Jake said, wrapping his arms around the dog's neck. "Good boy, you're such a good boy, yes you are." Dropped to her knees beside them. The dog immediately turned to her, giving her face the same treatment. She laughed and scratched behind its ears, finding the perfect spot that made one of its back legs kick. Made a small sound. Jake looked up and saw her standing at the edge of the group, her crystalline skin glowing with colors he had never seen before. Wonder, pure wonder. "It really does love you," she said quietly. "I can see it, the way it looks at you, that is love." "Of course it is," Jake said. He was still on the floor, the dog draped across his lap. "Dogs have been loving humans for 15,000 years. It is what they do. It is who they are." Professor approached slowly. The dog noticed him and tensed for a moment, but it did not growl. It did not attack. It just watched, pressing closer to Jake for comfort. "It is afraid of me," said. There was pain in his voice. "After everything we did to it, of course it is afraid." "Give it time," said gently. "Dogs are forgiving. If you show it kindness, it will learn to trust you." Had not moved from the control panel. He stood there like a statue, watching the scene with an expression that Jake could not read. 3 years, the commander finally said. "We kept it in a cage for 3 years. We studied it. We feared it. We called it a monster." He paused. "And all it wanted was this, someone to hold it, someone to love it." "Yes," Jake said simply. "How do we make this right?" asked. "How do we apologize to a creature we have wronged so badly?" Jake looked down at the dog in his lap. It had finally calmed down and was now resting its head against his chest. Its eyes were closing. For the first time in 3 years, it felt safe enough to sleep. "You cannot change the past," Jake said, "but you can change the future. This dog needs a home, a family, and Earth is too far away to send it back right now." He looked up at the security cameras that were definitely recording everything and broadcasting it across the station. "Maybe," Jake said, "this is a chance. Not just for the dog, but for all of us. You spent centuries being afraid of species. You taught that fear to generation after generation. But fear is just ignorance wearing armor. When you understand something, really understand it, the fear goes away." "You want us to keep the dog here," said slowly, "at the academy." "I want you to give it a chance," Jake replied. "Let the students see it. Let them learn what a dog really is. Let them understand that not everything from it is a monster." Smiled. "And maybe, while you are at it, let us tell you about the other animals we have bonded with. Cats and horses and dolphins and elephants. Every species we have decided to love instead of fear." Stepped forward. Her voice was hesitant but hopeful. "I would like to learn. I would like to understand how you do it. How you look at something dangerous and see a friend instead of a threat." "It is not complicated," Jake said. "You just have to be willing to try. You have to be brave enough to offer your hand, even when you know you might get bitten." The dog in his lap sighed contentedly. Its tail gave one last sleepy wag. "What is its name?" asked suddenly. Jake realized he did not know. The research files probably had not bothered to record it. To them, the dog had just been a specimen, a subject, a weapon to be studied. "We will call it Buddy," said. "Every dog deserves a name. Every living thing deserves to be seen as an individual, not a category." Buddy, the dog, seemed to like it. Its ears perked up slightly at the sound. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Buddy became the most famous creature at the academy. Students came from all over the station to see the apex predator that wagged its tail and begged for belly rubs. Jake and gave lectures about Earth animals, teaching aliens that had feared humanity for centuries that they had nothing to be afraid of. Professor became Buddy's biggest advocate. He wrote papers about the psychology of human-animal bonds. He proposed new classifications for species that took into account their capacity for love and loyalty. His work changed how the entire Galactic Union thought about dangerous worlds. Commander offered Jake a new position, consultant on first contact protocols. His job would be to help the Union approach species they had once considered too dangerous to contact. If humans could make friends with wolves, maybe they could help make friends with other misunderstood creatures across the galaxy. And Buddy, the golden retriever who had been called the most dangerous apex predator in known space, spent his days playing fetch in the Academy gardens, taking naps in sunny spots, and teaching a galaxy full of aliens that love was stronger than fear. On the day Jake officially adopted him, Buddy sat beside his new human with his tongue hanging out and his tail wagging. "Good boy," Jake said, scratching behind his ears. "You are such a good boy." Around them, 100 alien students watched with wonder in their eyes. They were learning something that humans had always known. The most powerful force in any galaxy was not weapons or technology or military might. It was the simple choice to love something that could hurt you and trust that it would love you back. The end.